Hey everybody, it's Chris Eads, Wootini from GayGamer.net, here with another weekly video podcast, this time coming to you live-ish from beautiful Boston for PAX East 2015. Unfortunately, my co-host could not remain to do the podcast with me. He had an appointment to get to. I don't, so I can linger and do this before heading back to the show floor for the rest of Sunday and seeing the rest of what I wanted to see. Very quickly, let me just run down. I will post articles on the site with more details on all of the games that I played and impressions and thoughts and information and whatnot. But just some quick highlights. First off, I wanted to talk about the Diversity Lounge, which is back again this year for a second time. And interestingly, they changed the layout slightly, so the booths are all along the back wall, and the beanbag chairs are all in the center, and they opened up all 4 sets of doors so that everyone walking by can see in, and it looks like a great place, and I feel like that helped give it a little more foot traffic because it looked more open and welcoming, without the booths in the center. However, I was a little dismayed to see that there were actually less booths this year than there were last year. I feel like there were maybe 4 or 5 less booths. There was at least one new organization this year that hadn't been there last year, and another one. But it was interesting, and I'm not sure why there were less. Maybe, I don't know if it's like, oh, they just couldn't. I know one person who just couldn't make it this year, and he was here last year. But I don't know if, like, Gamergate had anything to do with it, because they felt unsafe or something, I don't know. I would hope not, because the Diversity Lounge is supposed to be a safe space. And yes, it would be nice if the entirety of the convention could be a safe space, but we're a long way from that, especially after all that brouhaha with the Enforcer and Brianna Wu, but I really don't want to get into that. I'm trying to keep this light, people. But I still think it's cool that the Diversity Lounge exists, and it is a great place, and there are people who discover it and are like, wow, this is amazing, this is the coolest thing ever. But as far as games, as promised, I made a beeline and I played Splatoon, which, not being the biggest fan of multiplayer shooter games, I wasn't sure what I was going to think of it. I thought it was delightful. Obviously it's cute and cartoony and fun, but what I liked about it is that it's not just all about killing the people on the other team. You don't kill the people. They explode and then they respawn and squid around and stuff, but the main goal is to cover as much ground with your color, so while other people are shooting other people on the other team, I was like, oh, look at this, nobody painted here yet. And oh look, there's some yellow, let me paint it blue. Haha. So it was a tutorial and 2 rounds, and in the first round I actually was the top player who painted the most space. In the second round I was second. But like, it adds something to the gameplay where the painting is the main objective and shooting the other players is secondary. So I kind of like that. And I'm pretty sure that all my friends who have Wii U's are probably going to get this, so I should have people to play with. So it might be worth purchasing when it comes out. Now I'm kind of, having played it, I'm kind of no longer on the fence. I think that I'm picking this one up. The other major thing that I did try was, I finally tried the Oculus Rift. Which was very mind-blowing. As you know, I'm a big fan of 3D movies, 3D games, whatever. So to have 360 degrees of 3-dimensional imagery was mind-blowing to me. It wasn't a game, it was simply a demo where you put the headset on and various scenes, like 7 or 8 different scenes, cycle through. And you can like look all around you and look up and look down and like look around at things and get closer to things, and you know, you couldn't move around too much, but the movement was flawless, you know, when you moved your head, except for one time when I moved and took a step back, at which point it kind of went, and I got, like, it wasn't a natural move, and so I do wonder how that'll play when you're, like, sitting in a chair and you're playing a game with a controller, because this was literally just stand there and scenes will appear around you. Like the one where you're standing on a Gotham City-esque rooftop, and I am afraid of heights, so I looked down and I immediately was freaking out and getting vertigo. And I knew, my brain logically knew that I was standing on a piece of wood in a small room on a convention floor. But seeing that was so realistic that I got vertigo and I got dizzy and I freaked out a little. And I was literally terrified. It was ridiculous, and the guy started laughing at me, and I'm like, you know exactly which demo this is. And he's like, take a step off. I couldn't. I lifted my foot to take a step forward, to step off the roof, and I knew logically that because it's just a set demo image, it wouldn't move. I wouldn't have fallen, you know, I would have just stepped forward, and I wouldn't have fallen. But I couldn't put my foot down because my brain was like, no! And it was just ridiculous. But I do wonder how it'll play, like when you're moving with a controller and looking around and stuff. I don't know. And then I tried a few indie games here and there. The one that really stood out to me, well, there were two that really stood out to me. One was Homesick, which is a first-person puzzle exploration game where you are in this. You wake up in this decrepit, run-down, decaying building with various apartments, and there's no voices. It's just this lilting piano score as you move around the building and find things you can interact with and solve puzzles in the world to advance and uncover the story and find out what's happening. And it was really quite lovely, and I was very impressed by it. Just visually stunning, and even more impressive is that it was the work of one man who did all the designing and programming, and basically is making this game from scratch. I'm personally amazed that it looks as amazing as it does. The other one that I played that I thought was quite amusing was Y2K, which is it's an RPG, and it's like a combination of Earthbound and Zelda. The battles, the turn-based battles, are very Earthbound. I mean, they're clearly inspired, but it's a tribute, like an homage to Earthbound, because they're just dead on. It's exactly like Earthbound. And then the dungeons, per se, it takes place in this very surreal, dreamlike world with, like, ladders and platforms and things, and you basically, those are very, like, Zelda-esque dungeon puzzles where you have to, like, figure out how to get to here, and then flip that switch, and then go back over here and do that, all the while fighting the enemies. But it's all very Earthboundy with its weird sense of humor and the surreal world and stuff. And more delightful than that was the fact that it's coming out on PC, PS4, Vita, and Wii U. So I love that it's getting the Wii U is getting some love from indie developers like that. And personally, I'm excited to play it on the Vita, just because I would love to have a new Vita game. Plus, because it's an RPG, it'll take a while to get through, and I'll get through it faster if I can play it on my Vita, so I can play it on my commute, than if I'm playing it on my console at home. So I thank you for watching. I'm going to go now because I have to get back to the convention and see some more stuff. Look for all the coverage. I will write a bunch of articles. Look for those all on gaygamer.net, including the ever-popular cosplay gallery. There's some really good cosplay this year. And I will see you back, well, not back here next week. I'll see you back on my couch in my living room next week. And have a good time. I'll see you then. Bye!